It's officially October, which means that spooky season is in full swing, and if you're anything like me, you are on the hunt for spooky books to go along with the spooky season. Personally for me, I'm not much of a horror reader, but I do like to read some darker fantasy books during these months. The TBR that I have here is largely an accumulation of fantasy books that have some darker themes. So for me, darker themes, stuff like witches or necromancy or vampires. So I have a couple of books here that have those kind of darker subjects. So if you are interested in that, feel free to stay tuned. I'm just going to get right into the books because I have quite a few here. This one is actually a continuation of a series, and it is Kingdom of the Curse by Kerri Maniscalco. This is the sequel to the book Kingdom of the Wicked, which follows a character named Amelia, who is a witch living in Italy, who her twin sister is murdered under mysterious circumstances, so she makes a deal with one of the 7 princes of hell to investigate her sister's murder. I quite enjoyed the first one. It wasn't like an all-time favorite book, but I did enjoy the plot line and the characters. I read it when it first came out, so that is why I haven't continued with the series yet, but I am excited to continue with this one, and I know that this one has more of those sort of spooky vibes, as I think our characters might be journeying to hell itself in this one. There is also a spin-off series to this called The Princes of Sin, so I would really like to get this series done soon so that I can continue on with that series, because I know that series people have really enjoyed as well. Another one that I'm looking forward to is Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. This is kind of classic trials romantasy that is very on trend at the moment. I believe we're following a main character named Kenna, who is sort of thrust unexpectedly into this like competition with Fae, I believe, but it still has this more darker element because the Fae are very ruthless. I also just love this cover. It's such a stunning design, and I think the second book in the series has come out recently as well, so this is one that I'm eager to pick up. Another one, and this one is sort of a sequel, but sort of not. It's actually a spin-off series to another series that I've already read, and it's called The Scarlet Veil, and this is a spin-off to the Serpent and Dove series, both written by Shelby Mahurin. Serpent and Dove follows a witch and a witch hunter who basically are forced into an arranged marriage, and I believe The Scarlet Veil is following a character that was introduced in that original series, who is also a part of this witch hunting order, and I believe in this one she somehow ends up in a situation where she's possibly growing close to Vampire Lord. So I'm very interested to see world building evolve and also to follow a separate character in this world. This is one that I've been meaning to get to for a while, but once again I've kind of been holding off on, largely because it has those darker elements, so I want to read it in the correct season. And then another one, also a vampire book, is Court of the Vampire Queen by Katee Robert. Now Katee Robert writes very spicy romantasy stories, so I'm a bit nervous going into this one. The cover art on the back of this I think is pretty suggestive and gives a pretty good overview of what to expect from this book. So I'm definitely intrigued by it, but it is very different than the classic like genre that I like to read. It also has these cool sprayed edges as well. And then another one, this is a recent pick up, is called Spellcaster by Jaymin Eve. I haven't read from Jaymin Eve before, but she has a book series that was turned into a TV show that was called Supernatural Academy on Netflix that I really enjoyed. So I would like to pick up this one soon. I believe we're following a main character who basically has to attend this like magical academy. She has like an enemy who's like, the families have been feuding for generations, and she basically has to team up with this enemy to like defeat some ancient evil. So it's a pretty like kind of standard plot line, I feel like, for the romantasy genre, especially for what's trending now, but I am still really intrigued to see this author's take on those tropes. I also really love this cover, and it does have a sprayed edge as well, so it's a really gorgeous addition. Another book that I'm interested in picking up is called The Deathless One by Emma Hamm. I have been wanting to read Emma Hamm's books for quite some time. She writes a lot of like sort of spicy romantasy, but I feel like she has some more unique takes. she's written some about mermaids and like minotaurs and stuff like that, which I feel like is a bit more rare in the traditionally published sphere. Following a main character named Jaymin, who I believe is a princess married off to a king and then is sacrificed to the like evil god, and then that evil god ends up like bringing her back to life so that she can exact her revenge against the people who killed her, which I'm very intrigued by. I love this kind of theme of like feminine rage, and I feel like that's very on par for like spooky season, so I am really intrigued by this. Once again, it has a gorgeous cover as well and a sprayed edge. I'm very interested in this one and I hope to really enjoy it. I also think that there is a second one in the series that's already been announced as well, so all the more reason to enjoy this one. Another sequel that I would like to pick up is The Ashes and the Starcursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Serpent and the Wings of Night series, which I read the first one. I did really enjoy it. I liked our main character a lot and I liked the romance between them. I was a bit kind of thrown off by the ending, but I am still intrigued to see how the plotline develops in the second book. I also know that the second duology in this, as the series is following multiple couples, has also come out recently, so I hope to really enjoy this one so that I can pick that one up soon as well. The first book is following a main character named Araya, who is the human daughter of the vampire king, and she basically joins these trials that are held in the name of the goddess Nyaxia, who, if you win the trials, you will get some sort of reward, and Araya hopes to be able to win the trials and sort of prove herself and also become a vampire. I really liked the first book and I am excited to see what happens in the second one. Another one that I'm interested in picking up, and this one is also by an author that I have read from before, and it's called What Fury Brings by Trisha Levenseller. Now, I have a bit of a complicated history with Trisha Levenseller because I really enjoyed one of her duologies that's called, I think, The Shadows Between Us and The Shadows Within Us or something like that. I'm completely blanking on what they're called, but I really enjoyed the second book in that. And then I also read her series called Blade of Secrets, and I enjoyed the first book, Blade of Secrets, but I didn't like the second one, which was Master of Iron. And then I started her Daughter of the Pirate King trilogy and I did not like that one, so I am a bit hit or miss when it comes to Trisha Levenseller's books, but this one has a very intriguing synopsis. We're following a main character who is a warrior general who is basically forced to make some sort of arranged marriage with one of her enemies. It has a lot of the kind of currently trending tropes like arranged marriages and enemies to lovers, but I do think the inclusion of a female warrior general is a very intriguing premise and something that I haven't seen done a lot within both fantasy and romantasy, so I am really intrigued to see how she's going to pull that off. But once again, a really stunning edition, has a sprayed edge and also some gorgeous Under the Dust Jacket artwork with our two characters. One is also another enemies to lovers romantasy, and it's called The Dagger and the Flame. This one, I believe, we're following two characters in sort of a Romeo and Juliet style romance who are part of feuding gang in the city of Phantomheim. I think our main character has like recently lost her mother and is only like recently joined the gang, whereas the male character, I believe, is like the heir to the enemy gang. So there's some like tension between the two of them and their different allegiances. So I am very intrigued by this. This is also the Fairy Loot Special Edition, so it's very stunning. Another one that I'm also looking forward to picking up is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Devney Perry is actually a romance author, and this is her romantasy debut. Her books are quite popular, and I have heard a lot of good reviews for Shield of Sparrows. I believe in this one we're following a main character who kind of lives in this like cursed sort of land where the gods have sort of cursed the different kingdoms for some sort of transgression, and I believe she is some sort of royal, and she is basically betrothed to this sort of monstrous type figure after his betrothal with her sister falls through, because her sister has been for most of her life kind of trained as like an assassin to sort of take out this monster, and I guess maybe he figures out the plan and so decides to change course. One of my other favorite books, which is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, also has a similar sort of plot line where initially the older sister is supposed to marry this sort of king godlike figure, but instead the younger sister is sent in her place, and I really enjoyed the romance and sort of world building in that book. I don't necessarily know if this is going to be similar to Warbreaker, but I did really enjoy that setup of the plot line within that book, so I'm hoping that this one will also have similar elements and vibes to what I enjoyed from Warbreaker. And then another sequel that I would like to pick up is The Nightshade God by Hannah Whitten. This is the third book in the Nightshade Crown trilogy by Hannah Whitten. The first book is called The Foxglove King, and I read it around the time that it came out, and I really enjoyed it and I had a great time. This one is set in a darker gothic inspired fantasy world, different forces of life and death magic, and our main character Lore is one of the wielders of the mortem or death magic powers, and I really liked how that's integrated into the story and also the lore and world building. Book 2 ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, so I have been anticipating this one, though I get very nervous about reading concluding books to series that I'm enjoying because there have been times that I've been disappointed, and I'm also just nervous about what's going to happen to my favorite characters, but I am still really eagerly anticipating this one and have been waiting quite some time for it to come out. The next one is also a sequel. It's called The Iron Flower, and this is the sequel to the book The Black Witch, also written by Laurie Forrest. And that one, we're following a main character named Aloran, who is basically the granddaughter of this sort of semi-mythical figure called the Black Witch, who basically was one of the most influential figures in setting up her nation. Also was someone who enacted a lot of violent and discriminatory measures against other groups of people, and this series deals a lot with unpacking those prejudices through the personal connections that Aloran and her friends build with characters from these different ethnic groups within the world. So I do really enjoy the themes and topics and discussions within this book, so I'm eager to get to this one and get back to the world because the world in this is very intriguing, and I love how the author has used the sort of fantasy medium to explore some really important social topics as well. And then the last one that I have here is called A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford. A.K. Mulford actually has a YouTube channel here that she talks about writing, and I really enjoy her videos, and so wanted to pick up one of her books, and I feel like it fits well for this sort of spooky season because this is sort of inspired by fairy tales, and I believe we're following two sisters, one of them who is in an arranged marriage, sort of similar to a lot of these other books that I've talked about, and I believe her and her sister have to go on some sort of journey together. Eager to pick this one up as well. And then I did also recently go to the bookstore, and I do have two books that I think don't really fit the spooky vibes, but they are cozy books, which I feel like also fits for fall. The first one is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This is set in the same world as Sengu Mandana's other book, which is called A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This one, I believe we're following a main character named Sarah, who used to be this super powerful witch, and now she's running some sort of inn, a magical historian who arrives at this inn, and I believe there's some sort of romance that develops between them. The cover is just super cute. Like, there's this cute little inn, and then there's this little baby fox who is so cute. The other book that I also picked up is one that I'm a bit hesitant as to whether or not I would enjoy because I've heard some mixed reviews on it, but it's the Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I've heard that this one has a lot of like similarities to things like Gilmore Girls, which is a show that I quite enjoyed, and I believe we're following a main character who is like running a cafe, obviously, but I've heard that this one is a lot more spicy than the cover will lead you to believe, so I am still intrigued by it, but my expectations for it are maybe a bit lower than what they would have been initially. And then I did also pick Puzzle as well from the bookstore. I really like doing puzzles when I'm listening to audiobooks, so hopefully I'll be able to find at least one or two of these books on audiobook to listen to while I complete this puzzle. That was, I think, 12 books, so I'm not 100% sure if I'll be able to get to all of these books. I would like to try and get to as many as possible. Let me know if you have read any of these books or if any of these books are on your want to read list. I'm always eager to know what people are picking up for this month and what books they have enjoyed in the past. So if there are any other books that you have on your October TBR that would fit in this sort of spooky fantasy vibe that I have going on, feel free to leave those recommendations down below, as I'm always looking for more books that fit into this. And once again, I hope that you enjoyed this video and enjoyed hanging out with me for a bit and talking about books, and goodbye!